What is up, everybody? So if you've been on my channel for a while, you know that I like to talk about both sides of every situation and every case that I go over whenever possible. I like to go over, despite what I may believe, I like to go over both sides of the information. If I believe someone is guilty, I like to go over the information of why some people might think they're innocent, and the other way around. If I believe someone is innocent, I like to go over everything to see why some people might think they're guilty. I like to go over as much information as possible. Now, of course, the case I go over the most on this channel is the Making a Murderer case, the case of Steven Avery and Brendan Dassey. Now, I've read every book that I could find out on the topic. I own, I don't know, 5 or 6 books over there. I own 5 or 6 books on the topic. I've read every newspaper article that I could find. Recently, I've been going back and reading all of the original articles that were being printed at the time their trials were going on. I've been doing videos on them as well. I've read the court transcripts. Whenever I say something that somebody else doesn't agree with, they always send a link or a video or say, you should read this. And the big one is, you should read the trial transcripts. Assuming, of course, they're assuming, of course, that I haven't read them. I've read everything. They think if I read this or watch this clip, that it's going to change my mind. And 99% of the time, I've already watched or read what they're sending, and it hasn't changed my mind. But I am always open for discussion on everything. Maybe there's something out there that I haven't seen, and then one day it'll be like, whoa, this changes my mind completely. This is clearly different from what I believe, and this proves it. In regards to Making a Murderer, I've never seen anything so far that would sway what I think. Not even a little bit. Everything that I've read firmly, in my opinion, goes towards what I believe. I've read Jerry Buting's book. I've read Ken Kratz's book. I've read 3 or 4 other books on the topic, and it has not changed my mind at all. I get a lot of comments on the videos in my YouTube channel, and I'm going to talk about one specifically today because it does the exact opposite of what I like to do. Now, the majority of my videos obviously are talking about what I believe in the Steven Avery and Brendan Dassey case, but whenever information comes out that even goes against what I believe, like the upcoming docuseries Convicting a Murderer, that will air this summer on Daily Wire Plus, that is going to be go against everything that Making a Murderer said. We'll definitely be going over that, watching that, covering that, doing videos on that, and I'm looking forward to seeing what they put out there. Now, I get comments. This isn't the one I'm going to discuss, but I want to read this one as well. And I'll put it up on the screen for you. It states, he did it, so did Brendan. She's trying to frame Bobby, talking about Kathleen Zellner, which there is no real evidence. It's been 20 years, and all of a sudden they've got this new evidence implicating Bobby. 0 whistleblowers, 0 evidence contrary to the facts. They did it. Sorry, rest in peace. Teresa, remember a woman was brutally beaten, raped, murdered, and raped again, and her remains were burned to a crisp. Now, it's comments like that, and now this particular person, absolutely feel free to keep writing whatever they believe. Doesn't bother me in the least. I love seeing what other people believe. But this particular person has clearly not done their research, because when they're talking about how there's no new evidence, there is a mountain of evidence that shows Brendan Dassey was not involved in any of this, and it's extremely easily provable. So it's those comments that I just scanned by and oh, this person's just trying to get attention, or maybe they honestly believe this, maybe they haven't watched or done the research, but it's comments like that that easily are disprovable. Now, the comment I'm talking about today that I'm going to put up on the screen here for you, and here's what the comment states, and I'll put it up on the screen for you. The thing is, Avery is guilty. Yes, Kratz is a nit. Yes, the prosecutors lied, stole, and cheated to get the guilty verdict. Yes, there was an obvious conflict of interest during the investigation. Yes, it did not happen the way they said it did. Yet, still, no one can logically explain Avery's blood in Teresa's RAV4, except that Avery cut his hand, actively bled onto the spots where his blood was deposited. Now he says no one can logically explain. That's been logically explained a ton of times. Yes, if Steven Avery was actively bleeding in the RAV4, his blood would be everywhere. But he would also have his fingerprints everywhere there was blood. He would have had his fingerprints on the steering wheel or on the door or on the car, anywhere, inside the car, outside the car. They would have found one fingerprint, one. They would have found at least one fingerprint of Steven Avery somewhere on that RAV4 if he was actively bleeding all over it. Or he was wearing gloves, okay? And if he was wearing gloves, that explains why there are no fingerprints. But if there's no fingerprints and he's wearing gloves, that means there's no blood. So which one is it? Was he actively bleeding and magically doesn't leave fingerprints inside the RAV4? He would have had to open the door. He would have had to touch the steering wheel, the gear shift, something. He would have had to have touched something on the inside or outside of that car. When he popped the hood to allegedly do whatever he did to the battery, in this person's theory, his fingerprints would have been on the hood. His fingerprints would have been on the hood latch. His fingerprints would have been on the battery cables. Whatever it was they think Steven Avery did, you would have been able to find at least one fingerprint or at least one partial fingerprint, but there's nothing. So the argument against that is that he was wearing gloves. That's why there's no fingerprints anywhere. If there was no fingerprints anywhere and he was wearing gloves, there would be no blood. So you have to look at both sides of the situation here. And it's comments like that where people are only looking at one side of the discussion and going with that. No one can logically explain Teresa Halbach's blood in the RAV4. Well, if that's true, no one can logically explain why there are no fingerprints anywhere on Teresa Halbach's RAV4. I don't know. Let me know what you think. Leave some comments below. I hope you're having a good day, and I will see you again soon.